And we're back. I'm Bill Hellkamp of Reach Development Systems, and with me is Professor Scott Plum of the Minnesota Sales Institute.
There's a difference between can and will. Some salespeople can close, but don't. There's also a difference between can, will, and should. Salespeople that can and will sell should sell what to whom. Defining the what and whom is the start of defining your objectives. In the words of Zig Ziglar, get out your talking pad, as Bill and I discuss defining objectives and much more on episode 435 of Get in the Door podcast.
So what is a talking pad? I haven't heard that reference from Zig Ziglar.
In his tapes, he would always say, so I get out my talking pad and I start talking about this and I write this stuff down. As I'm talking about it, I read it out.
Well, we're going to do a lot of talking this morning, and we're going to start off talking with the book club. We are on the book Beyond Selling Value by Mark Shanka and Dan Kosh. And we're at chapter 8, The Right Stuff, as part of his communication area. The Right Stuff, Composing the Access Letter. Some good material on how to write a letter, not really compelling reading, but a great guidebook to crafting this type of letter. And I did find it to be some valuable information and some things that I had never done before. So, Scott, they had 4 steps in building this letter. One was the drafting, and in that they have 5 different pieces of the letter. A coach review, so having the coach look at it for input. Pre-selling the letter to the executive assistant, we'll talk about that, but that was something I've never done before. And then the follow-up. So what did you think about those major steps?
I thought they're great foundation steps. I think it's a good reminder to kind of show how far our sales culture or the process of sales has evolved over time. And I just look back at books that were, again, this was 20 years ago. It's still valuable content. It's a great foundation. And it's, like you said, it's stuff that I hadn't thought about. And I think if we start to overlook some of the foundational things, then we realize that there are some incomplete steps, and we find out that, some of our results are incomplete because we missed something.
Well, I think they're also incomplete because we don't really like to do research. We like to throw letters out into the wind. Boilerplate, here's what we can do for you. Here's how we can, in your terms that you hate, help you to be a better company. Yeah. And we hope that they are attached to it. And one of the things they talk about in this chapter is using the research that you've done to clearly identify need and issue areas. And I think that's really good. So let's go over the 5 steps in the drafting, because that's really the 5 pieces of the letter. So the first one is to open with a compliment and make it real and sincere. Some people, when they've talked about it, they answer some questions later in the chapter, and some people don't like that compliment. They feel it sounds hollow. What did you think of that?
It is traditional. I think you always should open up with setting a tone to the letter. And I think, if we look at letters, I think we need to also keep in mind emails. We probably do more emails these days than we do letters, but there's a lot of overlap between a message that we would put in an email and a message that we would put in a letter. So I think we should always set the tone of the letter as being intellectual or emotional. And sometimes we can look at certain words in the opening to determine if it's an emotional based letter or an intellectual based letter.
I always talk about making a hook, something that'll catch their attention. And what I learned way long ago in Dale Carnegie was a compliment is a great way to start a presentation. It's also a great way, I think, to start a letter like this if you have something that's real and sincere. So, it's not a really, hey, I really like your offices. They're really pretty. It's something that this particular individual has accomplished or done, not even a company accomplishment. It has to be nearer and dearer to that person. And so that means you have to do some research on the individual.
I think there's a great comfort in form letters. There's a great comfort in templates. I think we have these CRM systems that create these templates that we just plug information in and then we send it. I also think there's a strong temptation for companies to get into sales automation or AI, which takes a salesperson out of the equation and starts plugging in general norms and AI, which can be a bit elusive, but sales automation cuts a salesperson out. We end up doing a disservice to ourselves when we end up concentrating too much on sales automation.
I think the other thing I thought about, which goes to whether I want to put the time into that, so that's why I talk about it in this automation material that you're mentioning, and that is, this isn't your common deal. This is one of your big deals, right? This is where you've done the research.
Good point.
You're spending some time, and this is going to be a mega deal for you, and you have one chance to make an impression on this decision maker. So this isn't time for a form letter. It's time to do that research and work with a coach and do all the steps that are being suggested in the book.
Right.
This isn't for your, I want to sell you 500 gloves. This is, I want to sell you a whole new system.
Yeah. Right. I think a great question to keep in mind is this a qualified or unqualified prospect? What is the goal of the call? Is it to determine if they're qualified or if they're unqualified? A general letter, a template, that's probably focused on to determine if they're qualified or not qualified. If somebody's qualified, you want to be able to put some more intention into it and do some more research.
Right. And I think and that's really what they've been talking about throughout this chapter, right? You've done the qualification with your coach, right? So that's been in some of those meetings. Now we're taking it one level up to get to the real decision makers. So the second step in this is to discuss concerns and critical issues, which is the information that you found out in your research. And this is where you're really saying, I understand your business. I've done the research, and this is the real guts of the letter that offers up that you are an expert. The next step is an offer of partnership. We'd like to work with you. We think that together we can improve your business, the way you do business, save you time, save your money, whatever that offer is, which is quite common. What did you think of that?
The term partnership, I think, is overused these days, and I think that it devalues the service that we want to offer. We want to serve our prospects. We want our prospects to know that we are taking a lead once they agree to invite us in, and that we are going to serve them. And a partnership means that, we're going to agree on an equal level, and we're going to subscribe to the lowest common denominator. And I don't think that that's what some customers want. I think they want to hire somebody that's going to take over and take charge and to serve their prospects. But again, that's my opinion when it comes to the word partnership. I mean,
I think you got to be careful that you don't get too caught up in words. I mean, you don't like the word help. Now you don't like the word partnership.
Yeah, right.
So I do think that we use certain terms because we don't have anything really better. If I'm going to say, hey, listen, we want to take over your company, and the way you do it, I don't think that's going to come across well.
No, that's not.
So I'm not sure that everybody sees the term partnership maybe in the way that you do.
They probably don't. No.
But I do think that often we put that word out without us planning to do the share that we want to do. We just want to make the sale.
Right. True.
I see salespeople fall down, or selling organizations fall down in their side of the partnership more often than the client does. Client pays you the money, then you need to do the job. So
right.
The fourth step is to request the appointment, and then the fifth step is to close with a possible schedule. So can we meet the week of the 11th or something like that?
Right. Great.
So those are the 5 steps. Any thoughts on those?
No, I like the outline. I like the close with an appointment and a proposed date and time, and the sooner the better to work with them, because sometimes if they feel like there's a problem that is lurking and looming over a period of time, they're going to want to be able to get more options on solving it. And you want to be able to get in there and work with them and not give them a reason to want to talk to anybody else.
Absolutely. If you brought up the right concerns and critical issues, then they should want to have the appointment.
Right.
Now they talk about a coach review, have your coach look at it. And I think the biggest point to take away from that is don't let the coach get away with a comment like, well, that looks good to me.
Right.
Really ask them to delve into it. Is the wording right? Is the timing right? Are the critical issues correctly stated?
Yeah.
Don't let your coach get away with being sloppy.
Yeah. Good response to that is when you say it looks good, what looks good about it? What is it that you like most about it? And now you're going to get them to get specific as to what is it that they like. And then they might have to justify it looking good and find something good about it. But then you can ask them, is there a better way of saying that? or is there a better way of proposing that? And now you're going to be able to get more of that conversation. Again, that inspired friction is going to cause an evolution of content and an evolution of the letter too.
I want to give a note to our listeners. I want you to listen to Scott and how almost every time that he wants to get information, he asks a good question. And that's really the way, Scott, that you think. And that is so important for salespeople to think in terms of questions rather than think in terms of statements. And you just did it there again with a thoughtful question. What is it about it that looks good? Something like that. We have to really change our whole mindset, so we're thinking in terms of questions rather than statements. So you do that very well.
Oh, good. Thank you.
The third step is the one that I have never done, and I thought this was pretty interesting, especially on a big deal. And that was, they called it pre-selling the letter. And that means before you send the letter, before you even finish the letter, really, you talk to their secretary or executive assistant, let them know that a letter is coming, ask them for help in getting that letter in front of the decision maker, and then also discuss their proposed dates for you. So if you're saying, well, let's get together the week of the 11th, and the assistant says, well, they're going to be in China.
Right.
So it doesn't do you much good to ask for a time where they're going to be gone on vacation, whatever. So had you ever done anything like that before?
Never even thought of it. Never ever heard that technique ever being presented in all my years. So
what was your impression of it as you read it?
I thought it's a great idea. I think that it can be a challenge to find the executive assistant or the person that works with the decision maker, or has control of her calendar, or is even willing to share information with you. I find that's just very challenging. But I think it's a great attempt. Try it. Salespeople that are listening, try it. See how it works for you. It could be something you want to adopt.
Well, and you probably should have gotten the name of that executive assistant from the coach. Sure. So you should be able to get that. And, one of the things I've always heard about a good executive assistant or secretary, usually with an executive at this level, they've been with them a long time. This is nothing new to them. And their job is to get good information in front of that decision maker.
Right.
And so if you can't sell the executive assistant, well, you're not going to be able to sell the decision maker. So I think it's good practice to try this, as you say, see what you can do and ask them about the letter, and are these key issues, and is this a good time? You'll see what you find out. Maybe you'll find out as much as you found out from the coach.
Mm-hmm.
And then the fourth step is one that I think is really important. I teach it. I don't think enough salespeople do that, and that is follow-up. Mm-hmm. Don't expect your letter to create calls coming into you. You still need to reach out and confirm and get voice to voice with that decision maker to set the appointment.
Right. So true. If you're not going to follow up on it, don't send it out. Just pick it up, print it out, put it in an envelope, throw it in the trash. Because
don't stamp it though. You'll save yourself a stamp.
Right. If you want to really encourage yourself to follow up, put a stamp on it, then throw it in the trash. You go, I can't do that.
That's right.
I know. That's how important it is. If you're
that's how I gamble. I just take every once in a while I get the urge to go to the casino, and I just take $20 and flush it down the toilet. Saves me the whole drive and everything.
In time too. At least you know where it went.
All the time. Now they did suggest, if you really want this to be seen, put it in an envelope, send it overnight, do some special where somebody has to sign for it. It may cost you a couple of bucks, but how much have you already invested in this opportunity with all the time you spent finding a coach, working with a coach, having meetings? Spend an extra $5 or $10, get it couriered over to that person, and that executive assistant will see it as something important.
Very important. Right. Exactly.
So, and that's why this isn't for every sale you make. This is for those unique opportunities where you have a big deal going on. And for some of our listeners, every one of their deals is a big deal, right? I mean, they're looking to become a long-term supplier for this company. It's a multi-million-dollar deal. You're not doing 20 of these a week. You might be doing 20 of these a month or a year.
Right.
So take the time to really work your way through this process. I think it's a great process.
Again, if they're a qualified prospect, I think you really need to be able to keep them close, follow up quickly. I mean, like every other day. And because they're a qualified prospect. If they're unqualified, then, you need to be able to determine how much time you're willing to invest or spend on somebody that's not qualified.
Right. And so this is your week, right? If this is a multi-million-dollar deal, this is what you're working on, right? This may be your whole month's worth of work. You're working through this account and really trying to develop it. You're not trying to make 400 prospecting phone calls this week.
Right.
You're working with this major supplier, this major client, this major opportunity. You might have 2 or 3 of these going on at any one time. And so really spend the time to look through this. And that's what I like about this book, is that it's got a good process for you to follow if you'll take the time to follow it.
The Moneyball philosophy, get on base.
That's right.
You just want to get on base, or you want to move the ball down the field if you want to look at football. So you're just making those incremental steps in the sales process and moving the ball down the field, and eventually you'll end up in the end zone.
That's right. Every football team doesn't just throw a Hail Mary every time they get the ball.
Right.
Well, we have heard from a listener again, and I just wanted to read it from a listener, Anita, and she mentioned our podcast, and I think she sent a similar note to you, Scott, but she said, thank you for everything that you and Scott Plum do to help sales professionals. These are the most challenging days, and your efforts truly make a difference and are very much appreciated. In your last Get in the Door episode, you both were on point once again with practical advice and helpful tips. For years, I too have appreciated Charles Swindoll's attitude quote, which we read on the air. So thanks, Anita, for those kind words. I bring that up at a time where we're also going to mention our book giveaway. So we do have a number of copies of Beyond Selling Value, and also another book by Mark Shanka and Dan Koch that once we get done with the Beyond Selling Value, we'll start giving the other book away, and I'll mention that one at that time. But go ahead and send us a note. Go to getinthedoorpodcast.com, send us a message, contact us on LinkedIn. Any of those ways will get you into the drawing for these books, which we are sending out once a week. And our winner for this week is a gentleman named Brian Center. Brian Center. I don't know where Brian. Do you know where Brian's from?
I can't remember.
Okay, so we'll get a message out to Brian that he's a winner, get his information, and send him the book out probably early next week, since we're coming up. This is our pre-Thanksgiving episode. So anyway, go ahead and sign up at getinthedoorpodcast.com.
This segment of Get in the Door Podcast is brought to you by The Art of Prospecting, your guide to getting in the door, by Steve Kloida.
Steve Kloida was known internationally for increasing salespeople's ability to make solid appointments with qualified prospects. You too can learn this essential skill by ordering a copy of his superb book, The Art of Prospecting, your guide to getting in the door. In this book, Steve shares the top strategies and tactics he has developed, implemented, and personally tested with more than 1 million sales and prospecting calls. You can get his book on the website, theprospectingexpert.com. In addition, check out his other great online resources. Instant Sales Coaching, which will guide you through 5 online success modules. A guided prospecting process entitled Call Reluctance Transformer. And the Magnetic Selling Strategies Workbook, a detailed step-by-step guide to increasing your sales. Get any of these valuable resources at theprospectingexpert.com.
So our topic today is on defining objectives. And I think objectives are a combination of activities with intention. And I like to use this as an example, is our activities are foot on the gas. Our objectives are hands on the wheel. So where are we going with the activities? I opened it up by saying, the salesperson is concentrating on what to whom. What are we selling to whom? And I think we need to really look at a matrix of products and industries when it comes to objectives and who we're targeting, and how we can really create good balance within our product mix and our industry mix. And here's some examples that I just want to keep into consideration. We're in Minnesota, Bill and I, and our governor shut the state down again. And if you were in the payroll business and you concentrated on bars and restaurants, I think you'd pretty much be out of business, because
along with most of our bars and restaurants, by the
right,
way.
Exactly. and fitness centers.
And our fitness centers.
Yeah.
And anybody else that the governor deems not giving enough money.
Not essential.
Not essential. That's
right. Not essential.
Not contributing to
physical fitness, I think, is very essential.
Yeah. Well, we keep the liquor stores open, but we close churches.
Yeah.
No political bias here.
Right. So if you concentrated on that industry and you didn't have a mix and you're a payroll company, it would be a challenging times. Recently, a publication called The Reader, which promoted bands, concerts, shows, arts festivals, they went out of business. They just said, we're stopped publishing. Boom. And they stopped because there is nothing
to promote
going on.
That's right.
So when we look at our objectives, how are we maintaining a good product mix, a good industry mix? How are we focusing on some entry-level products so that we can sell enterprise products? I think of a company, 3M, based in Minnesota. Their brand, their image, reputation is built on one word: innovation.
Mm-hmm.
On the side of their semis, you've seen it on the side of the trailers, innovation. Now, how do they action innovation? How do they incorporate that into the activities and the objectives that 3M has? And they do it by focusing on 25% of all their revenue comes from products that were developed within the last 5 years. Now, think about that. If you're constantly targeting companies with products that are newly created within the last 5 years, you're really selling current market-ready products that are relative and related to the current marketplace and the needs that they have.
So they're kind of glad they got out of the floppy disk business.
Exactly. Yeah. And cassettes, VHS cassettes.
There you
go. So and that's how they've stayed current. And we need to think about that with what we sell. We need to constantly be coming up with products. We also need to be able to evolve the products. And we also need to adapt as to how people buy. I think that's one thing that Bill and I really concentrated on, working with companies that need to evolve as the market evolves. Just because you bought a book and you bought a system in 1976 and you're still practicing it today and you're wondering why things are not working out as well as they should, it's because the market's changed. The sales team has not. The culture has not evolved.
People have changed the way that they buy, the way they research, what they're looking for from a product or service. So that means your value proposition has to evolve. Mm-hmm. And so you have to really think about what you're doing out there. When you started talking about objectives, the first thing that came into my mind was beginning any planning with the end in mind.
Good.
So if you don't start with what your ultimate goal is, and that goal, as Scott mentioned, might be what your mix of product is, it might be what your total sales are, it might be that you have to engage certain parts of your company or your organization, whatever those things that are driving it, that's where you start your planning. We need to get, as 3M does, 25% of our revenue from products that are less than 5 years old. We may need to increase our business with oil and gas, or we may want to increase our business with a certain customer segment. So that's the end in mind that you have to start thinking of. And then your activities start to build based on that. And I think too often people miss their planning goals or don't meet their objectives because they never made any.
Right. Oh,
or they didn't make any kind of a strong commitment to them. Okay, we're going to, good Minnesota, we're going to kind of try to maybe get hold of more people maybe this year. Okay. Yeah. Bother you at all.
Yeah. So. You can't have the philosophy of all revenue is good revenue. I don't disagree with it, but I think there needs to be a structured matrix as to where the revenue is going to come from. And keep in mind that, the shorter sales are going to be the smaller companies. The longer sales process are going to be the bigger companies. And you need to have both when it comes to a nice balanced matrix of where the revenue is coming from.
That's right. You're looking for those companies that can grow. You're looking for those companies that will be in business in the future. So as your point of a payroll company that's in Minnesota that's focusing on restaurants, they didn't have a good enough mix. The one I always see is the ski shop.
Right.
What does the ski shop do during the summer? Do they sell skates? Do they sell roller skates, roller blades, those sorts of things? Or are they out of business all summer long?
Right.
So you have to have a mix. Sometimes it's a seasonal mix. I have clients that have businesses that do a lot more business in the summer. They're a lot quieter in the winter. They have to think of something to put in that winter time so that they continue their sales process forward rather than just waiting for summer to come again. The other thing about goals, I think, and objectives is you need to write them down and put them in front of you every day. And this isn't just your, I'm going to make 10 calls. Those are your activities. What is your overall vision? It's so easy when we get, what's the saying? When I'm up to my butt in alligators, it's hard to remember my goal is to drain the swamp.
Right. Yeah.
And when we get busy and work with our daily activities and our daily tasks, and a phone call comes in and we have to deal with it, it's quite easy to forget the overall objective of the year or the month or whatever that objective is. Put that in front of you, talk about it, put it on a card, read it every day. Every salesperson out there, I can't emphasize this enough. Every salesperson out there, you are in your own business. You may have the resources of a large organization behind you, and that's great, but you need to set your objectives, and you are committed to meeting those objectives no matter what anybody else in the company does, and no matter what the company does, sometimes to screw up their own business. So set those objectives for yourself that are part of the overall objectives of the organization.
Right. I think companies hire salespeople based on one skill, one attribute, and that is good judgment. Because salespeople are trading their time every single day for the best return on their time. Once the time is spent, they'll never get it back. So they have to make good time trades and exercise good judgment.
Absolutely. Now we are cutting this podcast one day before Thanksgiving. That means we are 5 weeks away from the end of the year.
Man.
And it's going to come up fast. So I would encourage you to start thinking about what are your objectives for 2021? Where are you going to be? Don't wait until the first of the year. Then you're going to be a month behind. This is the time to start setting your objectives for 2021. What are you going to do? What are you going to accomplish? What is the mix that you want to do? How are you going to focus your business? How are you going to deal with the COVID pandemic that seems to continue on, closing down businesses, losing customers? If your business is dealing with restaurants, where are you going to go? Where are you going to go get new business? Because those people might be closed down for 2 or 3 months until this passes. If you're dealing with hospitals, what new products, issues are they dealing with based on that? So think about what's going on around you to create new business, because 2021 I don't think it's going to be just we're all open for business again. Resources that you have on this topic, Scott?
Yeah, I've got a webinar that's on my website at mnsales.com. We'll put it in the show notes at getinthedoorpodcast.com. It's called Selling is Your Reputation in Action.
So it's a video they can watch?
It's a video. It's about 43 minutes. The slides are a little hazy because I had to use an old camera on an old laptop, but you can download the slides. You can take notes during the program, and I think it's going to be informational. If your reputation is important with the sales team and you want your sales team to represent the company, that's what it's focused on.
All right, excellent. And I have a blog or an article called Get Going, and you can get that on my website. We'll link to that as well. This segment has been brought to you by the Jumpstart Sales Coaching Program, presented by the hosts of the Get in the Door podcast.
Business is heating up, and now is the time to get back on the selling track. While others wait for the market to improve, prospects and opportunities await you now. Perhaps you want to be more productive on your prospecting, or you'd like to increase your closing percentage. Maybe having meetings online is not as comfortable as being in person. Sales reps are telling us they need some honest accountability and skill development to rise above the competition. Whatever your reason, this is the perfect time to engage with an experienced sales coach. That is why the host of Get in the Door podcast, Professor Scott Plum and Bill Hellkamp, have developed the Jumpstart Sales Coaching Program. For only $495, you can receive personal coaching from the same sales professionals you enjoy on this podcast. It all starts with a discussion to give us your insights into your specific goals, challenges, needs, and motivation. After your 1-hour online session to jumpstart your coaching process, you will receive 5 more half-hour individual coaching sessions to enable you to make improvements over time and create new habits. Most salespeople make their money back with just one sale. Go to getinthedoorpodcast.com to contact Bill or Scott about the Jumpstart Sales Coaching Program. Do you believe you deserve better results? Now is the time to invest in yourself and invest in your future.
Well, Scott, let's wrap up this podcast with our golden nugget. This one is from Pablo Picasso, not necessarily the person I'd normally go to for sales quotes, but He said, our goals can only be reached through a vehicle of a plan in which we must fervently believe and upon which we must vigorously act. There is no other route to success.
Wow. So you're saying luck and chance is not a route?
I don't think so. What is it? Hope is not a strategy.
Right. But I think another thing that I really like about that quote is that the believing comes before the doing. And I think the believing also represents our feelings and our thoughts. So if we look at what determines our success, is it based on feelings or action? And it is somewhat based on feelings, but feelings need to be discerned and then incorporated into action that then supports the outcome that we want.
And I think this is one of I agree with you. This believing is so important. And this is why so many sales managers fail to engage their team in the objectives of the organization. They put out their objectives that the salespeople don't believe in from the start.
Right.
And then the salesperson is bound to fail by that. So as a sales manager, you really have to get buy-in and belief from the team that they can achieve those goals. If you've been told, oh, we're just going to sell 20% more, and you're not going to do anything different, no training, no organization, no new products, nothing, just sell 20% more. Yeah. What you're saying to your team is, you didn't work 20% of your time last year, because the only way you're going to be able to sell 20% more is to work 20% harder, because we're not giving you any new tools. We're not giving you any new capabilities. We're not giving you any new product to sell. So just go out there and do 20% more.
Right. And they're going to gravitate towards what's the easiest 20% too,
well,
which is not necessarily what's the best 20% for the company. And that's when the objectives are not reached. Then we end up being like water and just going to the lowest common denominator. What's the easiest route to generating 20% more? And it's natural. It's human behavior. I'm not trying to be critical of salespeople, but it's natural behavior for human beings to do that.
Right.
Everything that we talked about will be at the website, getinthedoorpodcast.com. As Bill mentioned about the book giveaway, go there, fill out the form. You can check the box, hit send. Bill and I will get it. We'll enter you in the drawing. We want to give the books away. We have them. We've got our copies. So we want to give the books away.
And they're signed. They're signed by the authors, which I was like.
Mine is not signed. So I mean, if there's any left over,
send
Bill,
you his copy and keep it signed.
But anyway, what are we going to talk about next week?
Next week, we're going to do chapter 9 of Beyond Selling Value, called Beyond the Gatekeeper, How to Break Through the Block, which, man, I get that question a lot. How do I get past gatekeepers? Right. So make sure you're listening. And our topic is quickly creating rapport.
Great.
Go out and get better one skill at a time.
Joyful selling.